My name is Jeremy Scott Pompeo. I was in the Army National Guard for 20 years, and I retired as a Sergeant First Class.
What inspired you to join?
Honestly, I didn't have a lot going for me. I didn't have any good direction, and I just had like a small part-time job. I signed up with the first recruiter that I met.
Did they find you or did you find them?
They actually found me. The readiness NCO from the unit was a friend of my mom's, and he brought the recruiter out to talk to me. And I was looking for an opportunity, so I just went with it.
But they didn't know necessarily that you were going to do that. They just wanted to present that to you.
Yeah. I probably didn't look like I would have signed up. I had long hair and looked like trouble, but yeah, it was what I needed.
Did you have family that served in the military?
Not really. I had a couple of great uncles on my mom's side that were in the military, but there weren't people that were in my life. I didn't really have anybody that encouraged me in that direction,
So you didn't really know what you were getting into when you joined?
No idea. No idea.
So how old were you when you joined?
I was 18. I joined right out of high school. So graduated in May. I think I spoke with the recruiter in the summertime, and then the next ship date was in the fall. So pretty quickly, right after getting out of high school.
What year did you join?
I joined in September of 1999.
And when did you get out?
May of 2020. Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So were you like a traditional guard?
Yeah, so I was an M-Day soldier, as they call it. I was part-time. During my career, we got activated several times. One time we went to Iraq, one time we went to Afghanistan, but I was in the same unit the whole time. We were in Iraq for a year, 1 year in Iraq, but that whole mobilization was probably 15 months. And about 3 months before that, getting ready. So earlier in the war, they would take units into theater for a full year. So all the getting ready before that was on top of everything. So we spent quite a bit of time getting ready here. Then we went to Phoenix and did some more preparation. Then we went to El Paso on Fort Bliss and we did all our pre-mob workup. And then we went to Iraq and then we came home, and I think it took about a month after we returned before we were like back at our houses. So all in all, 15, 16 months of activity.
And you did that twice.
It was a little different when we went to Afghanistan. By 2012, things were a little more streamlined. All in that one, I think we were gone 11 months total, but only 9 months was spent in Afghanistan.
So how did serving affect your family?
It was definitely hard on them. I'm sure it's a lot harder on the family that stays behind. We kind of get our mobilization orders. The military does their best to help you kind of get your affairs in order before you leave. And then all you have to think about the whole time you're gone is your job, and your spouse is home worrying about the kids and paying the bills. It's day there and night here, so communication's tough. I mean, there is no quick turnarounds on things. So, the people that stay behind have to pick up the slack like overnight. So, it's definitely hard on them.
Do they have some kind of, for lack of a better word, training for the person that stays at home?
There's a lot of programs to support the family. I don't know how well they do about promoting some of those things, and being in the Guard, your family doesn't live on base, so it's kind of a different environment. I think there's a lot more structure set up for active duty families, but the families around here that knew each other definitely helped each other out through that. They kind of had their own little community going on, and that definitely improved from 2005 to 2012. They started taking a lot more time with the families before and after the deployment to explain the programs, the resources that were available, handing out magnets, and just trying to get the word out any way they could. We're a combat support unit. We did dirt work, and so we had plenty of notice when our deployments were going to happen. So I think we knew 6 or 7 months early before we went to Iraq, and then we knew almost a full year before we went to Afghanistan, because you're part of a bigger plan, and that plan has all been laid out. So they already know if your unit is eligible to deploy well in advance before they even select your unit to go fill that role.
But there are some National Guard units that can go quicker than that?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
And then for local stuff, you can be called for
Yeah, for local stuff, I mean, those orders, if there was a natural disaster type situation, those orders would come down through the governor's office to state headquarters, and they do maintain like an active role where they can call down the tree and see how fast they can get responses from everybody. So there are some things set up around having that level of readiness to respond to disasters like that. We definitely worked on projects that were strictly just for the benefit of the community. Like when we went to Alaska, we were building a highway across an island, and there's a small population of people that lived on the far side of the island, and so there'd been this massive construction project to build a highway across this mountain that had gone on for like 15 years, and it was really neat to fall into that process and get to play a part in that project. But that had nothing to do with national defense. I mean, it was literally about connecting these people that lived on an island back to the mainland to kind of improve their quality of life. It was a government project, so they need people with construction skills. And so units from all over the military were there. There was Navy people there, Air Force people. That was pretty neat to be involved in. We were only there for a few weeks, but we definitely made an impact right there that was, it's not usually what you would think of.
So what is your job? What was
I was
your
a
duty?
diesel mechanic. I worked on heavy equipment, and then over the years I ended up being in charge of the maintenance section for the unit.
So how did that affect the job that you're doing now?
It was definitely a foot in the door. I was always interested in working on vehicles and kind of understanding how things worked, but the military gave me actual technical training that kind of helped me start to understand how things worked, and that definitely carried me into the maintenance community up at the mine. I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for boot camp, and at that time it was 9 weeks. And then right after that I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for 11 weeks to do my technical training.
Did you consider yourself a mechanic or a soldier or both?
In that training,
Or just through the 20 years?
well, it's interesting because the mechanical piece is there, but it's almost an afterthought, because you have to learn how to do all those tasks that a mechanic would do with body armor and a helmet and a gun, and security was always the primary concern, and then fixing the equipment would be the next order of business. And so you definitely learn how to perform those tasks in a high stress environment, which I think that having to operate in dynamic situations like that has really helped me in my civilian career with managing like the stress and ups and downs that come just in normal business. Because I mean, even if everything else is falling apart, like nobody's going to try to kill us, we're safe here. And so I don't know, I would say that you realize that you're a mechanic, but you're definitely a soldier. That discipline has to be there. And you're always a soldier first. And so it's definitely interesting. Being proficient at your skill with all that stuff on was a big part of it.
Was your unit like kind of integrated into the regular Army unit, or were you still a separated National Guard unit there?
So when you get mobilized like that, you do get attached to active duty elements, but your unit stays intact as its own entity, but you report up through the chain of command, and at some point in there it becomes active duty again. So like in Afghanistan, we were under a task force. The next level of leadership was National Guard folks, but the people above them were active duty. It was a privilege to get to go. Not every unit got deployed. Some units didn't make it to their deployments for various reasons. And our unit was selected, right? And so, that was a big thing for us.
So you must have been a strong unit to be selected.
Yeah, I think so. I think we were really good at what we did. We had assessments done on us. It's routine. Higher levels come and kind of evaluate the frontline units and see how proficient they are at their tasks. And so we knew that we had done well on those evaluations to get selected. And then we did pretty good at our pre-mobilization stuff, where the big Army guys they run you through all the same training again, but they grade it a little more by the book, and just make sure that you're ready to go over there. And we did well. We did well. That's one thing that's unique about the National Guard and the reserves is the further you go up in rank, there's more and more responsibility, but you still have your whole life. You've got your whole regular life and career, and then you've got this other career that's part-time, but really takes a lot of energy and attention. And, even just getting ready for a weekend drill, I've got to work on that a little bit every day. So I really have to fit that into my normal routine. And as responsibilities are growing on both sides, you really get good at juggling priorities. And that's something that I sort of felt like distinguished us when we got overseas. Things almost got easier because now we only had one job to think about. And, there was a lot of things that I think we outshined our active duty counterparts on, because we went from double duty to just, this is it. We have to go do this task tomorrow, and that's all we have to get ready for. And it just seemed like a lot less pressure,
What was your favorite place that you've been able to travel to?
My favorite place was probably in Iraq. I really liked the time that I spent there. It was really hot and not a very pretty place to be, but it was also interesting to be there kind of in the cradle of civilization. I mean, there's places that you learn about in history, and we would drive by a road sign that said, Nazaria, or we got to visit a place called the Ziggurat, which is kind of a protected set of ruins where Abraham from the Bible was born. And so you're seeing these things that, this is the start of humankind, was right here. It was just neat. There was a lot of history there. Afghanistan was really pretty, but it was cold. And in the wintertime, it was really cold, and people don't know that. Like, they don't know that, it gets down below zero. Everybody thinks it's just the desert, but it's not.
What are some misconceptions about being in the military?
I think some common misconceptions are that it's all yelling and just this rigid discipline, and that couldn't be further from the truth. That is depicted because that's how training happens, but training is really just a reset. Just trying to reset sort of civilian tendencies and get your mind wrapped around paying attention to detail. After that's over, it's a completely different dynamic. Good leaders never lean on their rank. There's not a lot of yelling and push-ups, and there are some truly great leaders in the military that can inspire people to do great things in extreme danger, and that yelling doesn't work, in those situations. Another misconception, I think, that's come out because of the war on terror and all the media around that, is that people come out of the military like somehow broken by their experiences, and that's not the case. I would say the vast majority of the people that I served with are successful because of their experience, not in spite of it. Most people go in and do their time, learn some things, and come out better for it.
Are you eligible for full benefits through the VA and all of that from the National Guard?
I have all my VA stuff. I have used my GI Bill. I actually just finished my bachelor's back in May, and I was using my GI Bill for that. And that's an awesome benefit. I was actually getting paid while I went to school, and I was doing night school and working at the mine, so that wasn't a bad deal. That was a big deal for me. I do have a retirement, but I can't collect it until they take age 60, and then they subtract your deployments. So the National Guard retirement is different than the active duty, but that's something good too. That's out there in the future. So when I'm 58, I'll start collecting my little pension there. So that's not too bad. And then we're eligible for all the same veterans programs that everybody else is. The VFW does a lot of good work with the government to protect veterans' rights, especially, things around the VA. A lot of that's driven by the VFW's efforts. And so it's good to be a part of that. I wish we could get more engagement from local veterans.
What are the eligibility requirements? How do you qualify?
It's pretty simple. You just have to have a DD-214 that shows you went to a combat zone. We have a poster that's a map that shows where you're eligible and has a list of ribbons or medals that would be awarded that are, guaranteed proof that, okay, you're eligible to join, versus the American Legion, where you just have to prove your veteran status. For us, you actually have to have been deployed to a combat zone.
Can someone qualify as a family member of someone who was?
We have an auxiliary. My wife's actually the president of the auxiliary. And I believe we have more auxiliary members active than we do post members right now, because post members, usually come with more than one family member. So, yeah, there's definitely an opportunity there, and we work really closely. The two clubs, if you will, we do most things together.
So how do you qualify as an auxiliary member? Who would that?
You have to have some family affiliation to an eligible service member. So they don't necessarily have to be living. Let's say you had a grandfather who was eligible.
So like my grandfather was in World War I.
Okay.
Would I qualify to join then? Or
You should be, yeah. If you have his documents, you should be able to get that pushed through. I got the opportunity to go places and do things and have experiences that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't joined the military. And it definitely shaped me as a person and instilled some values in me that I wasn't going to pick up on the street. And it has definitely been a big part of my success in my civilian career because of the discipline and the drive and the work ethic that I learned there. You can spot the veterans out there in the workforce. You can tell, because they just have a stronger sense of responsibility for the things that they have to do. And it's definitely a benefit. It's definitely a benefit that wasn't on the brochure. I definitely feel like I earned my place in this country because I served, and I feel like I have an appreciation for this country because of being able to see other parts of the world and, realizing what we have is something that should be defended. And yeah, I can't see a drawback to getting more people exposed to that feeling, that sense of accomplishment.